Hello friends, welcome back my YouTube channel. If you want to watch the super hit movie Atlas in full HD, then first of all, give this video a like. And if you are visiting our channel for the first time, then subscribe to this channel. The name of the movie we are going to discuss in today's video is Atlas. So, we will give you information about how and where you will get to watch Atlas film officially. Apart from this, we will give you a detailed look at the pre-production, post-production, budget, box office collection, and filming of this movie. A detailed review of the movie will also be given in this video, where we will explain the story of this movie in detail. We will also discuss the cast and casting performance of the movie. Apart from this, information about the music department and technical department will also be given. Because of this video is going to be very interesting and entertaining, so you must watch this video till the end. And if you haven't liked this video yet, then like this video now and subscribe to this channel. So, let's start the video. Atlas is a 2024 American science fiction action film starring Jennifer Lopez as a skilled counterterrorism analyst who harbors a profound distrust of artificial intelligence and who comes to realize that it may be her sole recourse following the failure of a mission aimed at apprehending a rogue robot. The film is directed by Brad Peyton and written by Leo Sardarian and Aaron Ely Khalid. The film also stars Simu Liu, Sterling K. Brown, and Mark Strong. A co-production of ASAP Entertainment, Safehouse Pictures, New Yorker Productions, and Berlanti Schechter Films, Atlas was released by Netflix on May 24, 2024. It was negatively received by critics, but was successful on Netflix, reaching the platform's top 10 list in 93 countries, including the #1 spot in 71 of them. Plot. In the year 2043, humanoid artificial intelligence terrorist Harlan leads a war of machines against humans, which leaves 3 million people dead. The military forces of a new international coalition of nations, ICN, win a string of victories against Harlan and force him to flee into outer space. 28 years later, Atlas Shepard, an analyst with a deep distrust of artificial intelligence and the daughter of Harlan's designer, searches for the fugitive. After one of Harlan's AI agents is captured and interrogated, Atlas discovers that Harlan has escaped to a planet in the Andromeda Galaxy and insists that she accompanies the military mission to find and capture it, using AI-assisted mecha known as ARCs. Moments before the ARC-equipped ICN Rangers descend to the planet, Harlan's drones attack their orbiting ship. In order to survive, Atlas is forced to enter an ARC herself and falls to the planet as the ship crash lands on the planet. Atlas manages to gain basic control of the ARC despite her distrust of the onboard AI, who introduces itself as Smith. Atlas orders Smith to head to the planned drop point, where she finds the rest of the Rangers dead. She reluctantly agrees to directly interface her mind with Smith, allowing for greater control of the ARC. As they journey towards a rescue pod, Atlas and Smith begin to bond, and she reveals to it that her mother was the one who created Harlan. Although running low on power, Atlas convinces Smith to head to Harlan's base in order to tag it for a long-range strike. However, after placing a beacon at the base, Smith is hacked and disabled. Atlas is captured and brought to Harlan, who plans to destroy most of humanity and give the chosen survivors a chance to thrive under AI guidance. To do so, Harlan had lured the military to the planet in order to steal the ship and its carbon bombs, which will burn Earth's atmosphere. Harlan extracts security codes from Atlas's brain to get past Earth's defenses, then leaves her to die with Colonel Banks, the only other survivor of the mission. After Banks gives her his ARC neural interface device, Atlas remotely reactivates Smith, who comes to their rescue. Using salvaged parts from the other destroyed ARCs, Atlas upgrades Smith to stand a chance against the assembled AI forces. Atlas further reveals to Smith that Harlan killed her mother after the young Atlas, jealous of the attention her mother gave Harlan an unfettered interface with her mind. Harlan, programmed to save humanity from risk, then saw that humanity's history of destructive behavior made it a risk to itself. Smith helps Atlas overcome her guilt for her actions, and with Banks sacrificing himself to clear their path, Atlas and Smith fight their way out and destroy the repaired ICN ship before defeating Harlan in hand-to-hand combat, although Atlas herself is badly injured in the fight. A heavily damaged Smith shuts down before Atlas is rescued after repeated defibrillation. Back on Earth, Atlas is informed that Harlan's complicated CPU will take years to analyze. Atlas, now a Ranger, tests the newest model of ARC, created with her suggested modifications reminiscent of Smith. As she boots up the new ARC, its AI repeats a specific phrase Atlas made during the final moments of the mission, then jokingly tells her to guess its name, suggesting that the Smith sentience has survived. Cast: Jennifer Lopez as Atlas Shepard, Simu Liu as Harlan Shepard, Sterling K. Brown as Colonel Elias Banks, Gregory James Cohen as Smith Production. The screenplay was originally written by Leo Sardarian, and Aaron Eli Colate performed rewrites. Simu Liu, Sterling K. Brown, and Abraham Papula joined the cast in August 2022, and Lana Parrilla was confirmed to star in September 2022. Principal photography began on August 26, 2022, in Los Angeles and New Zealand, and wrapped on November 26th. Release: Atlas was released by Netflix on May 24, 2024. The film debuted at number 1 on Netflix's most popular English films list with 28.2 million views, or 56.3 million viewing hours, making it the most watched title for the week, May 2026. Atlas reached Netflix's top 10 list in 93 countries and was placed at number 1 in 71 countries. By June 5, 2024, Atlas accumulated 60 million global views, or 190.4 million viewing hours, making it the 4th film that stars Lopez to top the streaming charts in 2 years, after Shotgun Wedding 2022, The Mother 2023, and This Is Me. Now, A Love Story 2024, and the second most watched title of Lopez is on Netflix. The streamer reported the viewer completion rate for Atlas to be 80%. Reception. Critical response. The film was not well received by critics. On the review aggregator website Rotten Tomatoes, 19% of 110 critics' reviews are positive, with an average rating of 3.810. The website's consensus reads, Jennifer Lopez admirably does her best to shoulder Atlas's seismic scope, but this sci-fi spectacle buckles under the weight of a script whose intelligence is merely artificial. Metacritic, which uses a weighted average, assigned the film a score of 37 out of 100 based on 27 critics, indicating generally unfavorable reviews. The New York Times wrote in a review, "It's an intriguing concept, since an open question both on-screen and in real life is whether AI is inherently good or bad or neutral, or some other fourth thing we haven't quite put words to yet." The New York Times also praised Lopez's performance in the film, writing, "Lopez, who was also a producer on the movie, flings herself into the role with abandon, the kind of performance that's especially impressive given that she's largely by herself throughout." Space.com wrote in a favorable review, "It boasts impressive performances by its likable cast, inspired action sequences, and breathtaking visual effects, confidently led by a spirited director who understands the bulletproof mechanics of traditional 3-act structure." In a mixed review, The Guardian wrote that Atlas plays like it was made 2 decades ago. The Hollywood Reporter described Atlas as another Netflix movie made to half-watch while doing laundry. When it comes to the handful of names who are defiantly keeping the idea of superstardom alive, Jennifer Lopez is near the top of the list as a multi-hyphenate entertainment royalty. Just take a look at some of the projects she's steered in the last few years as a producer, actor, and singer, and the picture of her cultural reach snaps into place across genres and mediums. 2019's heist flick Hustlers, rom-coms Marry Me and Shotgun Wedding, 2022, the intimate action thriller The Mother, 2023, a self-funded project about her life journey titled This Is Me Now, 2024, and a Super Bowl halftime show appearance in 2020, among others. It's almost as if Lopez boldly declares at every turn that she's the whole package, while the rest of the world complains about the kinds of movies we don't get anymore, or the stars they don't make like they used to. Well, it's hard to argue against the fact that J.Lo is indeed the whole package, with a uniquely magnetic presence always welcome on any screen of any size, even when the quality of the project that she headlines leaves a lot to be desired, as is the case with some of the aforementioned outings. Her latest endeavor, Brad Peyton's cheesy, artificial intelligence-centric sci-fi Atlas, is no exception. This lackluster streaming flick that will never see its day on a big theater screen is hardly a Minority Report, I, Robot, or Gravity. Just a few of the movies that co-writers Leo Sardarian and Aaron Eli Colate seem to have had in mind in developing their story. But look beyond the dreary CGI and some clumsy set pieces, and it has Lopez all the same, muscular and fiery, game for any cheesy line Atlas gleefully throws her way. It sometimes feels like those cheesy lines are the film's second greatest asset, after, of course, Lopez. Which is why the film's straight-to-streaming release feels especially unfortunate. Aren't knowingly hokey rulings like "eat shit" from the lips of the recent Oscar nominee Sterling K. Brown, American Fiction, before he blows up an entire AI-ruled settlement, and "let's go bitch" delivered by Lopez herself, best enjoyed among a rowdy crowd. But you'll have to settle with the pleasure of your own company instead of following the brilliant data analyst Atlas Shepard, Lopez, first across the cartoonishly rendered Los Angeles of the distant future, and later, outer space. It's a time when AI is dominant but regulated by a special unit, and a renegade robot, Simu Liu's Harlan, with a pair of distracting blue contact lenses, who fled planet Earth 28 years ago, is still feared. What if he returns with an army and the wrong kind of AI takes over the world? Like Will Smith's Dell in I, Robot, Atlas here is full of hatred against AI, with a strong preference for things that are traditional and analog. But when a recent mission sends her to an unstable and inhospitable planet called GR-39 under Colonel Elias Banks's K. Brown leadership, she has no choice but to trust the very robotic powers she detests. Especially after she loses her entire team during the mission and gets stuck in a mech suit controlled by Simon, the AI persona from whom she needs help. But can the ever-cynical and sarcastic Atlas learn to trust Simon and allow it to sync up with her brain completely? Much of the film's second act builds around Atlas's trust issues, with the film, like Gareth Edwards, the creator recently, working too hard to demonstrate that not all AI is bad. Fine. It's not as if even the fiercest AI skeptics out there aren't aware of the benefits of such technology, provided that it is shaped and piloted by the right hands. But at a time when this technology is increasingly threatening to replace us and rob us out of our most precious creations, this supposed message falls comically flat. If the intention is to metaphorically depict the importance of trust in human relationships, the dynamic between Atlas and the increasingly anthropomorphized Simon, so human-like that he learns sarcasm and plenty of cuss words, doesn't come close to suggesting that in a deep or relevant fashion. As the film reveals the enigmatic connection between Atlas and Harlan later on, Atlas goes further off the rails amid visual designs and thematic ideas that feel borrowed from other and better films that came before it. And for a "our future depends on this" type tale, the stakes never quite coalesce. But Atlas does have Jennifer Lopez in all her starry glory in the driver's seat. It's not nearly enough, but it's something. When I try to describe Atlas, the one word that keeps coming to mind is perfunctory. It's not a word I typically use to talk about a movie, but it popped into my head relatively early in the runtime, and I've been unable to shake it. So, I'll have to try and unpack its persistence instead. Merriam-Webster ascribes two definitions to perfunctory, though lacking in interest or enthusiasm isn't quite what I mean. That would seem to describe the intentions behind the film as much as the film itself, and my reaction was to the end result, not the whole enterprise. The other definition, characterized by routine or superficiality, mechanical, gets me closer. Atlas is like an artificial sci-fi movie that walks and talks like the real thing, but just isn't. Set in a technologically advanced future, Atlas is named for its protagonist, Atlas Shepard, Jennifer Lopez, who was just a girl when Harlan, Simu Liu, one of her genius mothers, Lana Parrilla, artificially intelligent robots, went rogue. Harlan not only broke free of his programming, but hacked into AI programs worldwide and overrode the protocols that kept humans unharmed. Millions died, Atlas's mother first among them. When humanity started to win the war, however, the world's first AI terrorist fled into outer space. Almost 30 years later, Atlas has grown into a brilliant but volatile analyst determined to find Harlan. When a lead finally reveals his hideout, she bullies her way onto the mission to recover him, led by Colonel Elias Banks, Sterling K. Brown, whose views on AI are markedly different. He and his platoon have embraced her mother's neural link tech and each sync with an AI-powered mecha suit. The resulting union, the thinking goes, makes them superior to their adversary. Choosing whether to trust her suit's program, Smith, Gregory James Cohan, could determine whether Atlas lives or dies. The irony of reviewing a film about AI by saying it failed my Turing test isn't lost on me, but that is essentially what happened. Atlas is, by and large, a serviceable sci-fi action movie. It has some visible script issues, in particular an inability to stay ahead of the audience, and Liu's master villain is terribly bland. But the cohesive VFX brings this futuristic world and its spectacle-heavy combat to life, and Lopez came ready to anchor this two-hander with a robot. In another world, all it's really guilty of is being just okay. But I felt completely inactivated by this movie. I connected to no one, cared about nothing. The emotional tenor of scenes rose and fell without moving me in the slightest. At first, I struggled to understand why. The screenplay deploys a few different techniques to shape our relationships to certain characters, and while it's easy to see through to the dramatic purpose of specific scenes, they were still executed well enough to work. Most roles seemed a bit thankless, but I, for the most part, wasn't bumping the performances. I couldn't even fall back on the style over substance cliché, because that would have at least left me with something to hold on to. Once I zeroed in on the pacing, I understood. Atlas is definitely story-driven, and moves through scenes like it's eager to get to the next chapter. The most interesting thing about any given moment is what is happening, sometimes because of what that reveals about Atlas. That obviously puts a lot of pressure on the plot to be interesting, but it also betrays the movie's complete lack of curiosity, the superficiality part of being perfunctory. Take Lopez's introduction. Atlas is reluctantly woken by a smart home-style robot, which almost immediately asks her if she'd like to resume their chess game since she fell asleep while playing. Despite being groggy and concentrating on multiple video feeds at once, she occasionally speaks chess moves aloud until, just as she's walking out the door, she delivers the winning blow. It showcases her intelligence, her competitiveness, her ability to multitask. A save-the-cat moment if we're supposed to find our protagonist impressive instead of endearing. What it doesn't show is why Atlas, who grew up surrounded by robots until one murdered her mother, is comfortable with this level of technology at all. Has she overcome her trauma? No. In fact, her character arc is predicated on her inability to trust AI. So what does this say about her? Does she enjoy having dominion over tech in her own home? Did her childhood leave her better at connecting with machines than people, even if she loathes them? The movie doesn't think to ask, and doesn't want us to, either. The line distinguishing the AI Atlas fears and the programs she doesn't think twice about is never defined. The whole world is this dynamic on hyperdrive. Atlas opens with newsreel footage of Harlan's reign of terror, which includes a hacked factory arm wheeling around to crush unsuspecting workers. Not only did mechanization progress after that, but humanity went back to AI and even experimented with connecting their brains to it. So, in this future, we build Skynet Light and millions die. Then, when we crawl back from the brink, we double down. I'm not highlighting this simply to call it out as implausible. It actually isn't hard for me to envision a world of people so dependent on technology that they can't give it up, even after mass death. But the idea that we're just supposed to take it all for granted is maddening. There is a wealth of potential beneath the veneer of this story that the filmmakers simply don't care to explore. Plot. A brilliant data analyst with a deep distrust of AI finds it may be her only hope when a mission to capture a renegade robot goes awry. Review. I don't think anyone was expecting Atlas to be an incredible piece of cinema, and I went in with the lowest of expectations. But to be fair, it was actually pretty entertaining. Jennifer Lopez is probably the weakest aspect of the film, with her constant crying and complaining, but what elevated the material was Smith, the AI she is forced to work with when she is trapped on a planet. He has the best lines, and there are a few funny moments which only just lift this above 2.5 stars. Stuck in a mech suit, Atlas doesn't trust AI due to something from her past, but will she eventually bond with the machine to overcome adversity and save humanity? Take a guess. This is generic stuff, mostly copying Terminator and even Avatar at one point, and a billion other movies warning us that it's in our nature to destroy ourselves. Mech suits make any film worth watching, and it bothers me that I don't have one of my own, but I'm hoping Santa will provide me with one this year. In terms of action, Atlas doesn't disappoint, with some shootouts, explosions, and a cool final showdown with the villainous AI Harlan, Simu Liu. He makes for an interesting antagonist who, like all the best villains, thinks what he is doing is right. Liu gives a convincing performance where he comes across unsettling and creepy. At an hour and 50 minutes, Atlas mostly moves along at a decent pace, not going long without some threat or action set piece to keep things interesting. There isn't anything especially remarkable about it, but after the reviews I'd read, I expect it to be far worse than it was. Jennifer Lopez seeks to save the world in Netflix's Atlas, accompanied by a talented cast of actors who help to bring this science fiction story to life. The 2024 film is a classic story of AI technology gone wrong, but for Lopez's titular character to stop the CPU villains, she must learn to trust one of their fellows. Atlas features talent from projects like Shang-Chi and The Legend of the Ten Rings, This Is Us, Once Upon a Time, Sherlock Holmes, and more to tell its story, joining Lopez to play out a war to stop the greatest genocide Earth has ever seen. Netflix's Atlas follows its titular character, Lopez, who has a severe distrust for AI technology after her family bot led an assault against humankind. Atlas made it her life's mission to find and destroy this bot, and it seems she finally has her chance when the International Coalition of Nations, ICN, sends her off-world on a mission to do just that. However, when everything goes terribly wrong, Atlas must depend on an AI-powered mech suit to stay alive. It's an exciting tale with all the staples of great sci-fi, and this requires a great cast to bring Netflix's movie to the small screen. Born and raised in the Bronx of New York City, actor, dancer, and singer, Jennifer Lopez's breakout film was 1997's Selena, in which she played iconic pop star Selena Quintanilla Perez. From there, Lopez gained further prominence in films like Anaconda, 1997, and Out of Sight, 1998. In 2000, Lopez starred in popular romantic comedies like The Wedding Planner, 2001, Shall We Dance, 2004, and Monster-in-Law, 2005. The 2020s brought Marry Me, 2022, The Mother, 2023, and the musical film based on Lopez's 2024 album, This Is Me. Now, a love story. In the 2024 Netflix movie Atlas, Lopez plays the titular character, Atlas Shepard. She's the daughter of a genius scientist who has learned through painful experience never to trust AI. Atlas's only goal in life is to find and kill AI terrorist Harlan, who has a terrible connection to her past. Actor Simu Liu was born in Harbin, China, and raised in Canada. He had his breakout role with the CBC television sitcom Kim's Convenience in 2015, and later gained a recurring role in the NBC series Taken, 2016. Liu gained further notoriety when he starred in the MCU film Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, going on from there to appear in 2023's Simulant and Barbie. Liu plays Atlas's central villain, Harlan, the world's first AI terrorist. This character considers himself Atlas's brother since he was created by her mother, Dr. Val Shepard, to serve humanity and protect her family. However, Harlan betrayed his maker and initiated the devastating genocide of millions of humans. Born in St. Louis, Missouri, Sterling K. Brown gained prominence as an actor, appearing in dozens of TV shows such as ER, Alias, Without a Trace, Supernatural, and much more. He notably starred in the FX series The People v. O.J. Simpson, American Crime Story, 2016, playing Christopher Darden before starring in the hit TV show This Is Us between 2016 and 2022. Brown's movie credits include Black Panther 2018, Frozen 2 2019, and American Fiction 2023. In Netflix's 2024 science fiction movie Atlas, Brown plays Colonel Banks, the commanding officer of the mission to find and capture Harlan. Banks is brave and intelligent, though his greatest fault is that he doesn't take Atlas's input and warnings about Harlan seriously. Born and raised in New York City, actor Gregory James Cohan began his voice acting career in children's television and has grown from there. Cohan has credits in TV shows like Space Available 2014, My Dirty Little Secret 2015, and NCIS Los Angeles 2019. Cohan is best known for Where There's Smoke 2017, A Little Water 2019, The Velocipastor 2018, and the video game Red Dead Redemption 2. Cohan is the voice of Smith in Atlas, the AI companion that powers Lopez's character's mech suit. Smith's primary goal is to keep Atlas safe, but her distrust of AI makes this nearly impossible as the pair navigate the inhospitable planet they have landed on. However, as Smith proves himself different from the villainous Harlan, the pair begin to work together to save the world. Abraham Papula as Casca Vix. Casca Vix, one of Harlan's AI soldiers, is played by Abraham Papula in Atlas. Papula is best known for his work in Andor, Cruella, Morbius, and The Marvels. Lana Parrilla as Val Shepard. Actor Lana Parrilla, best known for her roles in Spin City 24, Once Upon a Time, and NYPD Blue, plays Val Shepard, Atlas's mother, who was killed before the Netflix sci-fi begins. Mark Strong as General Booth. General Booth is an ICN officer who believes in Atlas despite her antisocial, distrusting, and abrasive ways. The Atlas character is played by Mark Strong, whose many credits include Stardust 2007, Sherlock Holmes 2009, Kick-Ass 2010, Cruella 2021, and Shazam! Fury of the Gods 2023. It's a shame because Peyton has proven in the past that he can direct good action in films like San Andrea and The Rampage. And there's a scene in its opening moments that proves he has the juice with cameras hooked on machine guns and first-person shots of a tactile fist fight. That sequence put in my head that maybe this movie won't be so bad after all, but it gets immediately hampered by barely finished VFX with no sense of scale or depth as we get introduced to our titular character, played by Jennifer Lopez, a reckless scientist who fears the rise of I after a sentient robot, Harlan Simu Liu, kills her mother as a child. A Colonel Elias Banks, Sterling K. Brown, is assembling a team to apprehend Harlan after his location was revealed and Atlas becomes an integral part of the mission. However, each member of the team is using a Noward spacesuit known as Smith, Gregory James Cohen, which Atlas does not want to use or be close to. Predictably enough, the team gets ambushed by Harlan, and Atlas is forced to board a Smith to ensure her survival. The rest of the movie is Anna After Earth, a ripoff of Atlas being guided by Smith to arrive at Harlan's base and destroy it alongside him. Now, of course, A After Earth wasn't particularly good, but Shyamalan is far more willing in presenting interesting ideas to the screen, even if it doesn't fully work, than Peyton, who wants to talk about I without talking about I. Let me explain. Artificial intelligence is the subject of the moment, and the very rise of the technology in our everyday lives poses a real threat not only to our workforce, but also to humanity as a whole. Exploring this in a movie is ever timely as the technology keeps evolving and taking much grimmer turns. I is on the present during the opening moments of the movie, but the effects on such a technology is never fully developed other than we know how much Atlas despises it. While everyone else embraces it, Hayden doesn't develop this idea beyond that surface-level conflict. Whether Atlas' disdain of the technology or the reason why everyone decided to blanket embraced I, that's an interesting idea in and of itself. And one even wonders why someone would trust a technology that no one actively understands. Even some of the most proponent supporters of I, including Elon Musk and Yashwayo, have asked for a pause on developing new experiments, though others like Jan Lahan have fully embraced it. Hey, the only real comment we get out of the proliferation of V are that some softwares have humanized traits, such as one who specifies their pronouns being she, her, and noted, and that I is everywhere. Atlas thinks I bad. Others think I good. She will, at the end, think that I is bad, except for Smith, because they will learn to literally and figuratively bond inside a Spy Kids. Game over like spatial environment with shoddy-looking visual effects and a complete lack of proper shot composition. There isn't a single image of no Tina Atlas, and the film will never once overcome its fake movie allegations with characters so thinly developed and poorly acted. You would think they signed up to do an elongated SNL parody, which would be the only way to describe the out-of-body experience. You'll have watching this. There would be no other way to qualify you stilted, hysterically awful performance as Harlan, a villain whose motivations can only be summed up to blow up to the world and kill Atlas instead of something far more psychologically active, which the best eye villains have always been. He does kick some ass. During the final is a Dragon Ball ZY-inspired fight scene. But it's not enough to make him a fully fledged antagonist, whereas Lopez completely phones it and through its green screen-laden environments and action scenes directed by its visual effects team. There's no rhythm or energy in anything going on. We barely learn who these people are for us to truly latch onto them and create a meaningful connection with the protagonists, which are at the heart of every good science fiction story. If we're going to spend 2 hours of our time, and most of it with one character, I expect the titular protagonist to be developed or at least as relatable as possible. But we're a long way off Lopez's incredible performance. Cena hustlers, knowing full well this will be another cog in the Netflix algorithm that will be as easily forgotten as her previous actioner at Mother. At least that movie had some bold narrative swings that made that entire experience feel surreal, where we saw Lhasa has virtually nothing of note to offer. None of the acting is particularly interesting. The visual effects are completely unconvincing. The action continues the CGI blob pandemic that's unfortunately been plaguing most of our blockbusters. And Peyton never delves into some of the ideas that could make this piece of science fiction feel excitingly relevant, asking pertinent questions on the use of artificial intelligence in our everyday lives and how we can examine its arrival in a less frightful but apprehensive light. AI isn't all bad. AI certainly enjoy using Otter do I to transcribe interviews, especially in this busy MEF season, but it's also not all good. This moral, gray area seems to be at the center of Fatless. Yet Peyton never has the guts to do anything with it. He would rather fill the screen with mind-numbing images that never look real enough for me to care and immediately forget as soon as I begin to fall asleep. I'll only remember the time I had watching it with 2 divine interventions telling me to stop before I continued on and felt absolutely nothing for 2 very long, very dull hours. Arriving on the heels of the greatest love story never told, a true milestone of superstar transparency, where Jennifer Lopez expressed a clear-eyed view of her current career status. The Atlas feels like an underwhelming return to the kind of projects that have maintained Lopez's place in the Hollywood firmament, but not the ones that catapulted her there in the first place. One of her few science fiction-themed films. Its novelty alone should make it stand out, especially with a Brad Peyton, a reliable purveyor of large-scale spectacle, San Andreas rampage in the director's chair. But a dare of original ideas undercuts the appeal of Atlas, leaving Lopez to fan for herself in much the same way her character is forced to in the film's formulaic story. Lopez plays the title character, a coffee-addicted, rigid, and hostile data analyst whose mother, Lana Parala, developed the first artificial intelligence, being Harlan Simu Liu, when Atlas was just a child. It was not long after that, Harlan inexplicably, when Rogan overtook control of all eye devices in order to launch a war against humankind. Harlan eventually left Earth, but when global military force ICN captures his associate Kasavix, Abraham Papula, General Jake Booth, Mark Strong, reaches out to Atlas to hack Asuka's brain in the hopes of finding Harlan's whereabouts. Atlas identifies Harlan's location on a remote planet in the Andromeda Galaxy and insists on joining the team dispatched to apprehend him. Despite the trepidation of the operations commanding officer, Colonel Elias Banks Sterling K. Brown, Even so, she refuses to use one of the exosuits assigned to each soldier because operating it requires a neural bond between man and machine. But upon arrival at GR-39, the ICN forces quickly discover that they've been led into a trap, and Harlan immediately destroys most of their ships and equipment. In order to survive the fall to the planet's surface, Atlas reluctantly gets into one of the remaining operational exosuits, but immediately falls into a combative relationship with Smith, Gregory James Cohen, the default personality of its mainframe. As the two of them navigate the hostile terrain of the planet and encounter Harlan Day forces, Atlas begins to realize how much she's missed by closing herself off from the world. Thanks to Smith's adaptive programming, challenged by the first outside entity that she's allowed in her head since the death of her mother, Atlas finds herself forced to confront some hard truths about her past, especially when Smith begins to realize how acknowledging them may help them combat Harlan in the present. Directed by Peyton, Atlas shuffles nimbly through operatic visuals to tell what on the page must have seemed like an irresistibly intimate story of personal redemption. Unfortunately, a script by Leo Sardarian and Aaron Eli, the latter a writer on Peyton's Netflix series, Daybreak, reduces too much of that eminently relatable growth to perfunctor, even cliched character pivots that audiences will identify long before they occur. It doesn't help that the characters themselves verbalize many of the dynamics on which the plot dynamics hinge. Just seems, after detailing a laundry list of reasons why Atlas is exactly wrong for their operation, Banks immediately insists to his superior officer that she should join them on the track to GR-39. But film history is far too filled with hate at first sight partnerships for viewers not to anticipate the begrudging respect and even affection that Atlas develops for a counterpart. Moreover, the exosuit, its personality, and the film's overall adaptation on artificial intelligence feels fully cobbled together from the parts of too many earlier films to count. The machinery of Atlas' life-saving exosuit looks no different from the AM-amplified mobility platform suits in James Cameron's Avatar, itself a descendant of the power loader in Cameron's Aliens. Smith sounds more than a bit like Baymax, the overprotective healthcare robot, and Don Hall and Chris Williams' Big Hero 6, except with the ability to spur and deploy sarcasm and mimicry of Atlas' disgruntled disposition. Meanwhile, Harlan physically embodies the same fears about technology that have been explored on film for decades, sadly, without new insights. John Connor was 11 in Terminator 2 when he identified that mankind's inclination was to destroy itself. Harlan hardly needed artificial intelligence to arrive at the same conclusion, but his intentions to extinguish Earth's populations are meant to be a preemptive act. Playing the film's villain, lowers with a level of menace that betrays the technology's conclusive, if overreaching, impartiality. Harlan's opposition to humanity's continued existence would be better served by an air of chilling detachment. The gifted actor's breakthrough came only 4 years ago with Shanghai, but it's clear that the industry hasn't yet figured out what to do with him. Notwithstanding a scene-stealing turn in Barbie, he made more of an impression playing Pat Dubach's boyfriend on the other two than he does here. As too often happens with both Strong and Brown, they make phoning it and seem almost believable, but they're hamstrung with dialogue that again could have been written for any of a dozen similar features. But as this is released in the wake of her two recent self-examining documentaries, 2022's Halim and 2024 is the greatest V story never told. It's hardest to know what to do with Lopez. As devastating as it was to her to not receive an Oscar nomination for Hustlers, the role galvanized her public and screen personas in a way that none had in several years, offering a simultaneous showcase and deconstruction of her diva-like reputation. By comparison, this feels more like one of Dwayne Johnson's more recent paint-by-number star vehicles, complete with a Johnson collaborator in the director's seat. Viewers can see that she's trying, but too often it feels like she doesn't really have to. Even on a generic sci-fi adventure like this, that sensation comes as a disappointment precisely because of the candor Lopez showed in those documentaries, where she recognized that the world isn't yearning for new material from her, like it once was. One might think that would lead her to take more risks. Say strikeouts are more respectable when they follow big swings. But Atlas is predictable, overlong and bland, the kind of experience it's hard to get excited about when the star player seems to be perfunctorily running the bases. These days, any original sci-fi film is worth cheering for. One boasting genuine movie stars is even more exciting. Sadly, this Brad Peyton effort can't deliver on its promise. The Rampagia director benefits from some cool imagery and a great cast. In particular, a committed lead performance from Jennifer Lopez. A Batat wastes it on predictable character beats and a P-drama narrative. It's all very sci-fi looking. Lots of flying cars and blue glowy things. No surprise, given this bags, borrows, and steals from classic films and games of the genre. An opening raid to capture the rebel line known as Casca. Abraham Papula is heavily indebted to the attack on Trinity Ina the Matrix, while a computer voice asking, "Do you wish to continue?" As someone watches the news is surely meant to evoke a Starship Troopers. The plot echoes the 2004 AI robot. Lopez's ice skeptic Atlas must overcome her painful past to unite with an artificial intelligence and save the day from an evil robot. Simu Liu. A considerable chunk of time involves Atlas adapting to an interactive Max suit and its eye companion Smith Gregory, which she must use to navigate a hostile planet where the big bad is hanging out. This section has lots of extremely relatable moments of tech frustration, the endless pressure to sign up for services you don't want, the patronizing user manual, the creepily intrusive data mining. It's funny and horrifying at the same time. Surely, by the time we have flying cars and an LA that looks like Singapore, we should have moved past this. The premise frustratingly leaves the physically gifted Lopez essentially locked in a box for ages. Elle is similarly confined to lurk menacingly and rely on eerie contact lenses for impact. Still, there are entertaining moments as Smith develops sarcasm and Atlas gets to grips with action. Though they can't make up for the strongly conservative narrative for a film about robots, this is remarkably heavy on God and country motifs. There's also some muddy exposition that smacks of rewrites and rushed VFX that the film can't afford. Anything with mech suits and a first-person shooter scene risks looking gamey to begin with. You can't shortchange the VFX as well. Well, if there has been one technology that can define the 2020s, it is AI. As much as that affects behind the scenes in exciting but also exploitive and dubious ways, we are also going to see that come to the forefront of narratives. Today's film does just that as we dive into the world on the edge. So to set the scene, everything was going fine on Earth until one day every component on Earth rebelled, killing millions. All the damage was seemingly set off by one robot called Harland, Simu Liu, who helped kill millions before what was left of the world combined under the ICN and fought back. Harland escaped the planet, but 28 years later, his legacy of destruction is felt by all, no more so than Atlas Shepard, Jennifer Lopez, who grew up with Harland as a child. When one of Harland's top lieutenants, Kusavik's Abraham Papula, was captured on Earth, everyone knew he was ready to return. The one thing Atlas was fighting to stop. Thought right from the start, I liked the scenario that they were presenting, but not how they presented it. The opening exposition dump was clunky and stilted and left too much information close to its chest. This meant that when we were first introduced to Atlas, we were missing the needed context to make her entire vibe make any sort of sense. It is a choice that undermines the entire first act of the film, and creates distance between the characters that you are meant to forming some sort of bond with. You know, it is likely to be a drip feed throughout the film about why Atlas is the way she is, but context is essential, and it was needed here. It's an unfortunate error that I think might be a deal breaker for many, which is a real shame, because from the moment of the ambush onwards, the film becomes a much more interesting engagement. Her conversations with Smith, Gregory, James Cohen, and the growing comrade and antagonism made for a very interesting character piece, the religion eye, and the atheistic pilot, the different layers of control and command, who commands who. Yes, the sinking might be better in a Pacific ramp. The ice story worked better the creator and there is a great deal of depth that this film most to iRobot. However, here we have a more intimate exploration. Indeed, the film's second act is its best. It also, when Jennifer Lopez gets to shine, the production, outside of the issues with the screenplay, is generally quite good. I like the creation and implantation of the Ranger mesh. Even if they get shredded far too quickly, even if it made no sense for them to be stuck on Earth and to be able to other galaxies, the planet itself was well designed with an almost Genesis planet vibe with all its shifting biomes. I wish the music had more impact, but it doesn't get in the way at least. Also, it was good that Simu Liu works well as a villain, even if they dramatically underuse Mark Strong. In the end, do we recommend the Atlas? Look, it takes and that first act is rough. I think it did find its voice halfway through, but then it is questionable if they had anything they wanted to say with that. I found something interesting here, but I would also understand if you wanted to give this one a pass. If you like the Atlas, we would recommend to you a Finch. When I try to describe Beat Atlas, the one word that keeps coming to mind is perunctor. It's not a word I typically use to talk about a movie, but it popped into my head relatively early in the runtime, and I've been unable to shake it. So, I'll have to try and unpack its persistence instead. Merriam-Webster ascribes two definitions. To perunctor, though lacking in interest or enthusiasm, isn't quite what I mean. That would seem to describe the intentions behind the film as much as the film itself. And my reaction was to the end result, not the whole enterprise. The other definition, characterized by routine or superficiality, mechanical, gets me closer. A glossa is like an artificial sci-fi movie that walks and talks like the real thing, but just is an apostrophe T. Set in a technologically advanced future, a glossa named for its protagonist, Atlas Shepard, Jennifer Lopez, who was just a girl Harlan Simu Liu. One of her genius mothers, Lana Parrilla, artificially intelligent robots, went rogue. Harlan not only broke free of his programming, but hacked into iPrograms worldwide and overrode the protocols that kept humans unharmed. Millions died, Atlas Mother first among them. When humanity started to win the war, however, the world's first terrorist fled into outer space. Almost 30 years. Grown into a brilliant but volatile analyst determined to find Harlan. When a lead finally reveals his hideout, she bullies her way onto the mission to recover him. Led by Colonel Elias Banks, Sterling K. Brown, whose views on I are markedly different. He and his platoon have embraced her mother's neural link tech in each sync with an I-powered mecha suit. The resulting union, the thinking goes, makes them superior to their adversary, choosing whether to trust her suit's program. Smith, Gregory James Cohen, could determine whether Atlas lives or dies. The irony of reviewing a film about AIA by saying it failed my Turing test isn't lost on me, but that is essentially what happened. Dotsa is by and large a serviceable sci-fi action movie. It has some visible script issues, in particular an inability to stay ahead of the audience and use Master Villain is terribly bland, but the cohesive VFX brings this futuristic world and its spectacle, heavy combat to life, and Lopez came ready to anchor this two-hander with the robot in another world. All it's really guilty of is baying just okay, Buddha. I felt completely inactivated by this movie. I connected to no one, cared about nothing. The emotional tenor of scenes rose and fell without moving me in the slightest. At first, I struggled to understand why. The screenplay deploys a few different techniques to shape our relationships to certain characters, and while it's easy to see through to the dramatic purpose of specific scenes, they were still executed well enough to work. Most roles seemed a bit thankless. But I, for the most part, wasn't bumping the performances. I couldn't even fall back on the style over substance cliché till the copyright, because that would have at least left me with something to hold on to. Once I zeroed in on the pacing, I understood Dualasa is definitely story-driven and moves through scenes like it's eager to get to the next chapter. The most interesting thing any given moment is what is happening. Sometimes because of what that reveals about Atlas, that obviously puts a lot of pressure on the plot to be interesting, but it also betrays the Tao movie's complete lack of curiosity at the superficiality part of being perfunctor. Lopez's introduction. Atlas is reluctantly woken by a Smartames-style robot, which almost immediately asks her if she'd like to resume their chess game. Since she fell asleep while playing, despite being groggy and concentrating on multiple video feeds at once, she occasionally speaks chess moves aloud until just as she's walking out the door, she delivers the winning blow. It showcases her intelligence, her competitiveness, her ability to multitask, a save-the-cat moment. If we're supposed to find our protagonist impressive instead of murdered her mother, is comfortable with this level of technology at all? Has she overcome her trauma number? In fact, her character arc is predicated on her inability to trust. So what does this say about her? Does she enjoy having dominion over tech in her own home? Did her childhood leave her better at connecting with machines than people, even if she loathed them? The movie doesn't think to ask, and doesn't want us to either. The line, distinguishing the I Atlas fears and the programs she doesn't think twice about, is never defined. The whole world is this dynamic on hyperdrive. 8 Loss opens with news reel footage of Harlan's reign of terror, which includes a hacked factory arm wing around to crash unsuspecting workers. Not only did mechanization progress after that, but humanity went to back at Yai and even experimented with Khan. Then when we crawl back from the brink, we double down. I'm not highlighting this simply to call it out as implausible. It actually isn't hard for me to envision a world of people so dependent on technology that they can't grant it is maddening. There is a wealth of potential beneath the veneer of this story that the filmmakers simply don't care to explore. In 1927, a humanoid robot showed up and wreaked havoc in Fritz Lang's expressionist science fiction film Metropolis, a memorable early example of cinema's artificial intelligence antagonists. Since then, many sci-fi movie from 2001, A Space Odyssey, to the Terminator offerings to The Matrix, has proposed that some kind of AI will try to take us out, but it's scarier now. No longer is a menacing AI a thought. Experiment, mere metaphor. Every script with an AI villain operates in a world where the audience has probably thought about or used an actual AI to do some kind of task. So, the notion of an AI terrorist, as in Brad Peyton's new sci-fi action movie Atlas, seems easily plausible. That terrorist has a name, Harlan Simu Liu. In a fast-moving prologue, we quickly learn how he came to threaten humanity with extinction, wiping out millions of people before abruptly decamping for outer space. Humans left behind on a Blade Runner L. Looking Earth protected only by the International Coalition of Nations, ICN. Wait uneasily for Harlan's return, like a cutting-edge second coming of Christ. After 28 years of bearing nervously at the skies, the ICN captures an AI bot known to be associated with Harlan. Something is afoot. A scientist named Atlas Shepard. Jennifer Lopez is called in as the world's leading expert on Harlan, in part because her mother Val Shepard, the founder of Shepard Robotics, created Harlan and raised him alongside Atlas. At the request of Jen, Jake Booth, Mark Strong, Atlas boards a spacecraft commanded by Cole, Elias, Banks, Sterling K. Brown, headed for the planet where they've discovered Harlan, has been hiding out. Yucatan Aaron Eli is highly referential or perhaps derivative. Harlan shares a name with Harlan Ellison, the eminent speculative fiction author. Atlas is bearing the weight of the world on her shoulders. Lopez, who is also a producer on the movie, flings herself into the role with abandon. The kind of performance that's especially impressive given that she's largely by herself throughout. Her character's last name, Shepard, seems both metaphorical and maybe a link to a beloved character from the sci-fi show Firefly. I could keep digging, but you get the idea. At time, Atlas feels like pure pastiche, and it looks in a fashion we're getting used to. Seeing on the streamers, kind of cheap, dark, plasticky, and fake, particularly in the big action sequences. Science fiction often earns its place in memory by envisioning something new and startling. But with Atlas, we've seen it all before. It does, however, try to pose some potent questions. For some reason, the extermination of millions of humans by AI has not halted the use of artificial intelligence in this world as it did in, say, the universe of Dune. Actually, that kind of checks out. Instead, they're ubiquitous companions that play chess and adjust your home heating system, but also talk to you and keep an eye on you. Despite having an AI in her home, Atlas is extremely suspicious of the technology, so most of the movie's tension comes from her relationship to an AI named Smith. Perhaps another reference this time to The Matrix, with which she'll have to sync her own mind to survive. It's an intriguing concept since an open question both on screen and in real life is whether AI is inherently good or bad, or neutral, or some other, for thing we haven't quite put words to yet. Sometimes the movies A, like Steven Spielberg's AI Artificial Intelligence K, have suggested that these creatures we may build are capable of loyalty and love, and that humanity's proclivity for the opposite is the real problem sometimes. As in, say, Alex Garland's Ex Machina, we end up on their side. Atlas is also primarily concerned with the morality of artificial intelligence and who's at fault if it all goes wrong. This is where things get a little weird. After all, it's hard to forget that AI itself was a sticking point, a last year's Hollywood strikes in which Netflix, which is distributing Atlas, was very much a player. Is AI going to destroy the industry? Maybe a lot of industries, or will it save the world? Is Lass right to be skeptical? The answer the movie gave surprised me, and not in a particularly good way. It's a bad apple theory of artificial intelligence, say that we're wrong to stand in the way of progress, and that it's all fine as long as it's handled properly. Then again, I realized watching Atlas that my personal skepticism is not really about the technology itself. It's not AI. I'm worried about its human nature. I don't trust. When it ended, I genuinely checked to see if the film lists real human writers in its credits. Opens in a new tab. It does, but that does not make me feel better about mankind. A glossa is tonally confusing and rampant with cliched dilda copyright ideas. It also thinks it's a good idea to keep Jennifer freaking Lopez in a glorified chair for more than half its runtime. It's hard to quantify it glossa because it has no idea what it actually is. It never decides if it's trying to be a fun, schlicky, big-budget, elevated B movie, or if it's a more serious action film full of important social commentary. I'm not even sure its stars know, because their performances indicate they were all acting in a different movie. Lopez prevents this bizarre film from being a disaster with a good showing as Atlas Shepard, a brilliant, funny, introverted analyst with a troubling past that makes her hate artificial intelligence. Opens in a new tab. She's strong, vulnerable, and charming. She's having a good time most of the time. The other times, she's giving the part the emotional half it needs. Meanwhile, Mark Strong and Sterling K. Brown play military commanders who are clearly in a far more serious film that might not seem so out of place opposite Lopez, if not for the fact the usually fantastic Simu Liu plays the first and leading a terrorist, the cartoonish villain, Harland, as though he's hoping Atlas will end up in a Mystery Science Theater 3000. Like a lot of this film, I'm confused by choices. I honestly don't know if he is bad or if he gave the exact performance director Brad Peyton wanted. Either way, it doesn't work. In fairness to Liu, very little in this movie works. The predictable script is riddled with ideas about artificial intelligence and sci-fi points that weren't tried 30 years ago. It's also a CGI fest of varying quality, where a million things go boom without much of it mattering, but most of it feeling silly. The screenplay, which also features some Hemi dialogue, also has plot holes so big you can fly an intergalactic spaceship through them. At one point, an AI supercomputer with all of the knowledge in the world doesn't know something everyone does because the plot needs it not to know. That supercompute also forgets a step during a clearly defined easy procedure. It's not funny in any way, despite trying to be. It's just needlessly stupid. Needlessly stupid is also a perfect way to describe what the movie asks of its star. Jennifer Lopez spends more than half the film and roughly 50 straight minutes at one point in a mech suit. From her chair, she navigates a knockoff Pandora planet while endlessly talking to an AI program that has the most uninteresting, bland robot voice imaginable. That voice choice is actually an interesting idea. Maybe the film's only by not having it sound human. Atlas forces us to reckon with what it really means to be alive. Robot who can think and feel on its own, while clearly being a robot, is harder to accept as alive than one who sounds like us. The problem is that idea doesn't work on screen. The voice is instantly boring, even grating, even before most of the movie is Lopez and Smith having a continuous not-so-witty back and forth. Also, sometimes the movie asks her to square up and robot box 10 minutes before she delivers a big emotional speech about whether computers have souls. Alasa is like I Blade Runner a Castaway and a Starship Trooper got drunk together on a case of original for logo. That sounds fun until you remember. Those movies shouldn't even be hanging out together, let alone drinking poison. Ultimately, Atlasa either needed to be much dumber or much smarter to be good. It also needed to let Jennifer Lopez walk. But its biggest sin might be what it ultimately says about the possibility of artificial intelligence at a time when corporations are force-feeding useless AI garage down our throats. Despite its lazy comic book baddie, this film loves artificial intelligence. It loves it and its possibilities oh so much, and it thinks its affection for AI will give the movie a heart it desperately wants to have. There's nothing wrong with simple stories, but even simple storytelling must be good day engaging and capable of holding interest. Netflix is known for releasing straightforwardly entertaining films from every genre, but the streaming platform has had both hits and misses. Damo featuring Millie Bobby Brown in a feminist retelling of a fairy tale stuck to the basics and offered up a decently entertaining fantasy drama. The more recent Mother of the Bride needed some serious suspension of disbelief towards the end and received favorable reviews despite that. But then there are films like Heart of Stone, where simple storytelling simply doesn't live up to the themes and ideas this film is exploring. Here is where Netflix and its newest sci-fi thriller named Atlas A goes wrong. The Netflix movie revolves around Atlas Shepard, portrayed by Jennifer Lopez. Her mother created an eye named Harland, but he turned on humanity, taking every other eye with him. After killing millions, Harlan left the planet. Now 28 years later, he's back and determined to destroy the Earth. Atlas, now a skilled analyst with a deep mistrust of I joins the mission to bring him down. But things go wrong, and Atlas ends up alone. Her only hope is a mech suit run by a nine named Smith, and the only way she can survive is to trust Smith and fully sync with him through a device called a neural link. The rest of the movie follows Atlas' attempts at figuring out Harlan's plan while reluctantly opening up to Smith. The bond between analyst and I becomes the crux of the movie, and in that sense, the film fares quite well. Atlas is prickly and sarcastic, and Smith soon picks up on her tone of voice, even her cussing, in an attempt to bond. Atlas keeps her thoughts and feelings guarded, but Smith is endlessly patient with her. In addition to the grave contrast between his polite monotone and Atlas' sharp tongue, the two characters create an engaging dynamic on screen. A lot of this comes down to J-Lo's fantastic acting chops, seeing as she carries the entire film on her back. Atlas' personality is established early on as she wins a chess match against a computer while barely looking at the board and speaks to everybody like she's 2 steps ahead of the game at any given point. But Lopez takes the trope of the rude cynic and gives Atlas more dimension, making her a delight to watch. Her portrayal of Atlas is compelling and emotive, despite the fact that for most of the film, she is acting alongside a bottomless voice while confined within the small space of a mech suit. Unfortunately, these are the only positives in the Netflix movie, which is ultimately let down by poor writing. And it's not just that making a film about trusting artificial intelligence during times when AI is having very real repercussions on the world is a bit tone-deaf. Even apart from the real-world context, Atlas' narrative barely scratches the surface of its themes. In all of the main characters' struggles to trust Smith, the film doesn't actually look at the pros and cons of working alongside AI. It's more about Atlas' personal issues and her difficulty opening up to anybody. The film presents Smith as a good eye and Harlan as a bad one, without really exploring why they belong to these categories. In fact, Harlan's character is extremely one-dimensional, with Samuel Liu's talents extremely underutilized. There are questions posed about how much control humans can afford to give eye. But the questions aren't really answered. Even after certain scenes where the eye is able to control a person's physical movements, while Atlas rails against all eye, there's no mention of the fact that a computer runs her house. The story as a whole lacks all nuance and curiosity. The weak, shallow writing makes everything else have a stellar star cast. Jennifer Lopez's performance in the high production value, a redundant, without a deeper look at eye, and its role in this future Atlas remains a simple, predictable movie. Ultimately, maybe this film could be enjoyed by someone looking for an easy watch that doesn't require much thinking. In those cases, perhaps Shalo's performance and the character, sci-fi dramatics would be enough to scratch the itch. For anything more, the Netflix movie falls short. As we Nigerians would say, Jennifer Lopez carried the movie on her head. She's the reason the movie wasn't as badass. A broken bar. I don't want to say the name, so I'll say that sci-fi flick with a lunar uprising. Or This May Help a Broken Bar. The Star Wars wannabe with the rebellious spirit. Does it ring a bell? That mostly describes the movie's name, not the plot. I had high hopes for that one, but despite being star-studded, it was a serious letdown. One thing the movie has in common with Atlas, other than the space travel theme, is the need for a smoother approach to eye collaboration in script writing. It's not enough to simply type in a Janai, kindly write a movie script about eye humans and space travel. We must find a way to infuse human creativity, content, depth, and data-driven research into the eye-generated scripts. Remember recently when everyone on the internet pointed out how generic, flowery, and susquid alien irony intended with the last adjective most of the written content's now read because of the increased use of Jenny. I also discussed this at length of the eye-writing paradox. Well, we need to start that conversation about movie scripts. The dialogue in movies now is so generic, stiff, dry, and predictable. It gets worse when they try to crack jokes. Eye roll. Why do I think the script might have been written by eye? Well, the dialogue, the plot, it's a mixture of every space, sci-fi, and eye movie we already know. And I'm not the only one who thinks so. Gintaras Radoskas, senior journalist at Cyber News, calls Atlas an unconvincing blah and titles the article, I remember the part where Colonel Elias Banks, portrayed by the award-winning actor Sterling K. Brown, tries to make a joke about looking good despite being badly injured. This happens towards the end when Atlas Shepard, played by J. Lo, is also captured by the Irabel Harlan Shepard. Yeah, same surname, because he's like her eye brother. They were raised together. Talk about childhood drama. Anyway, that joke here, broken bar, just wasn't right. No. Everything was wrong about it. It was not the right joke, not the right actor, and not the right place. It was cringe. They made a great actor me just because of that nonsense joke. Let's not even get started on the conversations between Ice Smith and Atlas Shepard. J. Dahl Low. Some parts were good, but many people, including myself, wondered why Smith was talking about feelings before syncing with Atlas Shepard. The movie seems to be trying to spark a conversation about whether I will eventually be capable of experiencing emotions similar to humans. If you've ever wondered about this question, based on my personal research, I don't think so for now, but I'll share what the industry professionals have said as I'm still an aspiring ICE subject matter expert. Galaxy-hopping starships, giant meshes, a rouge, artificial intelligence, and J. Dahl Low. Most of those things go together pretty well, but the one ingredient you might not have expected is a Jenny from the block herself, Jennifer Lopez. She stars in Atlas, Netflix's new science fiction action thriller from director Brad Peyton that is positioned as one of the platform's big summer blockbuster offerings. Sporting a budget of $100 million, the streaming leader is putting a lot into the movie, and for the most part, their investment pays off. Peyton, along with co-writers Leo Sardarian and Aaron Eli Collad, pull inspiration from several pop culture corners, including James Cameron's Aliens, the Tom Hanks classic Casta Away, and the video game series Titanfall. Clearly, a ton of effort is put into realizing the richly diverse futuristic setting. There's impressive creativity in the cityscapes, technology, and weaponry. Much of it presented through some pretty spectacular digital artistry. The visual effects really shine once the Max suits come into play and the action kicks into gear. While Lopez has never ventured into the world of sci-fi, unless you count 2000's The Cell, she's no stranger to action films. With Atlas, she gets to flex her muscles in both. And she has a really good supporting cast around her that includes Sterling K. Brown, Mark Strong, and Simu Liu. The story itself doesn't break new ground, but it has a sturdy enough framework to make Atlas a fun and diverting popcorn movie, especially for lovers of genre and fans of J-Lo. Lopez plays Agent Atlas Shepard, a cynical and antisocial data analyst and counter-terrorist specialist who has spent years of her life hunting a rogue artificial intelligence named Harlan Liu. Despite being created to advance humanity, Harlan is now intent on destroying it. He's tried once, resulting in the deaths of 3 million people. He was ultimately thwarted and fled the planet. That was 28 years ago. After capturing a night terrorist loyal to Harlan, Abraham Papula, Atlas is brought in to question him. The information she gathers helps trace him eat GR-39 of the Andromeda Galaxy, where he is gearing up for another. General Jake Booth, strong, a friend and supporter of Atlas, reluctantly agrees to let her join the mission to take down Harlan. She's put under the command of Colonel Elias Banks, Sterling K. Brown, a noble but overconfident leader of an elite squad of Rangers who pilot heavily armed assisted mesh. As their starship enters the atmosphere of GR-39, they're hit with a barrage of rockets from the planet below. With the ship critically damaged and on the verge of being destroyed, Elias seals Atlas inside of a mech and jettison her into the clouds. As she is plummeting towards the surface, Peyton surrounds her with a jaw-dropping dogfighting sequence that sees the Rangers in mesh battling it out in the air against Harlan's forces. The scene is a little cartoonish, but exhilarating nonetheless. The majority of this story follows Atlas after she reaches the surface alone, stranded, and trying to navigate an unknown, inhospitable planet that's swarming with Harlan's soldiers. To survive, she'll need the help of her mechie program named Smith, voiced by Gregory James Cohen, but that will require her to overcome her intense distrust of artificial intelligence. Easier said than done. Again, the story isn't anything all that fresh or innovative. Several ideas and themes from the sci-fi side of the story have been done elsewhere in a variety of different ways. Yet, the pieces, especially when joined with the wild visuals, still coalesce into something entertaining. It's the personal stuff that doesn't really work. The film tries to infuse a deeper and more emotional layer to Atlas through a thin backstory that explains her cynicism towards I. Themes of haunting guilt and personal regret are touched on. Unfortunately, they feel tacked on rather than essential to the storytelling. While the well-meaning personal stakes may not land as planned, Lopez pours herself into her performance, earning our empathy while impressing us with her intense physicality. You makes for a formidable, although fairly conventional villain, while Strong and Brown sadly aren't given much to do. So that leaves Lopez and the VFX team to carry the load, which they managed to do with surprising proficiency. In the end, Atlas doesn't challenge or provoke, but it does entertain. There's some good action, cool world design, and even some right wit to keep things light, so know what you're in for. It might help you enjoy what you get. Atlas is now streaming on Netflix. Atlas Shepard is a gifted analyst for the International Coalition of Nations, ICN. She's prickly, untrusting, and very difficult to get along with. What she's respected for her experience and skills, and well, she should be. After all, the problem that the ICN was created to fight all started in a way with her back when Atlas was just a girl. Her mother, Val Shepard, was a groundbreaking scientist who championed the development of neural links, taking human interaction to new heights. Val created Harlan, a truly sentient robotic man. Atlas was in a sense raised alongside Harlan as a sibling. There were servant robots before, but Harlan was something no one had ever dreamed of. However, that robotic dream became a nightmare. Atlas was part of a mishap that transformed Harlan into what amounted to the first eye terrorist. He killed Val Shepard, a broken bar, and millions of others. He raised up an army of eye fighters and used his strategic brilliance to spread terror around the globe. The ICN was created to deal with that terror. They were in fact so effective that Harlan was forced to flee Earth. He's been hiding somewhere in space for the last 28 years. In all the time, Atlas Shepard has been searching. She's helped the IC and develop her at safety measures. She's sought out clues to the robot's whereabouts, and she's devised scenarios to deal with his potential moves. Harlan is still the greatest threat that mankind has ever faced, and he promised to come back and finish what he started. He will be back. Out of the blue, one of Harlan's robotic lieutenants shows up on Earth. Was he scouting for a new attack? After a great battle, the robot is captured. Atlas outfoxes the iBot and discovers Harlan's current location, the unexplored and generally uninhabitable planet GR39. This could be the break that the ICN has been looking for. It could also be a broken bar trap, but whatever it is, the ICN Rangers and their neural robotic arc suits are convinced they're up for the task. Atlas isn't so sure, but she's worked so long for this moment that she won't be left behind, should be there and face this eye demon, win or lose. Imagine the peace of knowing your child is being surrounded by powerful, scripture-based prayers every single day. Imagine the confidence you'll feel knowing that you're equipping them for a life of faith and purpose. Today, you have the opportunity to take that next step. We're offering you exclusive access, though, of praying the scriptures over your child. Rena, a free 7-part video series created to help you pray intentionally and effectively for your child's heart, mind, and future. Through these short, hope-filled videos, you'll discover how praying scripture can help you. Positive Elements Atlas is driven by a desire to protect others, albeit with an unspoken desire for revenge. 2. She also shoulders a burden of guilt for the terrible harm she indirectly caused, but someone later assures her that she can't be held accountable for a childhood mistake. A man sacrifices his life to give Atlas a chance at escaping danger. When others backs on Atlas because of her prickly nature, an IC officer general, Booth, has her back and supports her. She later gratefully thanks him for his friendship. Spiritual Elements. Atlas was only a young girl when she made a choice driven by desire for her mom's attention that caused Harlan to become evil. The event is presented as almost a transferal of her human sinful nature or awareness of Harlan taking a bite of the forbidden fruit, if you will. Expanding on that concept, Harlan rises up against his creator. He later says that he desires to destroy mankind as a means to save it. Since humans continue to threaten every other species as well as their home planet, it's only a matter of time before they destroy themselves, he declares. So, in a twisted bit of religious and environmental logic, he believes that the remnants of humanity will rise again and be at peace with the world around them. Atlas and I program debate what constitutes life. For instance, the program named Smith states that he thinks that everything has a soul. You can't find it in your code. Atlas retorts, not any more than you can find it in yours. The eye responds, but I have faith that it is there. Early on, Atlas talks to some ICN Rangers and encourages them not to trust their driven arc suits. The colonel in charge shuts her down and tells her it isn't time for any come-to-Jesus doomsday scenarios, sexual romantic content. Early on, we see a female-shaped robot on a repair line. The bot's naked to dorsal is blurred out. Atlas also has a conversation with the eye-driven robotic arc suit that declares that its gender pronouns are she, her, violent content. There's quite a bit of explosive violence. On top here, we see images of humans and I battling in city streets. For instance, vehicles exploding and being riddled with large caliber blasts. A powerful eye takes on a dozen police officers, shooting them and smashing them headfirst into hallway walls. It's eventually taken down by a huge electric gout. Similar battles take place in and around 39. Rangers in arc suits are fired upon by drones as they fall from the sky, and the combat is frantic and explosively destructive. On the ground, Rangers also take on iRobots. We see the after effects of the carnage, bloody human bodies lying in shattered arc suits, A large ship gets hit with missile fire, and people inside are bashed and battered around by internal Ford explosions. Eventually, the ship itself explodes in a massive eruption. Atlas is thrust into an arc suit that she doesn't know how to use. She's shot at, riddled with gunfire, and subject to high falls and crashes. In the course of all these attacks and falls, she is left bloody from a head wound and suffers a compound fracture of her leg with a protruding bone. The arc suit uses internal medical mechanisms to patch her up and reset the bone, while Atlas screams through the painful, lightly bloody procedure. Atlas and her IRC battle a number of different eyes equipped with guns and blades. One powerful unit uses its flaming blade to hack away limbs and large chunks of the suit. My opponents are hit with a large bomb that literally obliterates them. 2 different people are strapped to tables and a sharp needle probe is stuck into their eye. In one case, the camera angle obscures the probe's entry. In the other, the camera cuts away just as the needle touches. We're told that in the course of Harlan's terrorist activities on Earth, at least heads are crushed, impaled, and sizzled with electric blasts. In some cases, eyes are blown out or fall out of their sockets, etc. Crude or profane language. There are 3 Fords, 2 spoken, 1 written, and more than a dozen words in the dialogue. Those are joined by multiple uses of the N and bossy H, gods, and Jesus' names are misused a total of 14 times. God blended with the N on half of those drug alcohol content. Atlas arc suit injects her with pain medication and sprays her open wound with something else. Atlas is warned about her constant overconsumption of coffee. Other note for the elements, none conclusion. The movie Atlosa has an interesting sci-fi premise and star Jennifer Lopez, who spends much of the movie by herself in an ARC suit cockpit. It does a solid job of conveying the tension and emotion of the film. Ablasa also asks provocative questions about the wisdom of embracing the future of Aya, painting a picture of the created arising against secret with something of a twisted religious fervor. That said, the film feels like it's missing a few nuts and bolts in strategic places, or maybe its circuit diagram should have been checked once or twice more. The logic of the tale doesn't always line up. The connection between the hero and the villain feels paper thin and given short shrift. Perhaps most importantly, some of the stabbing eyeball violence and profane language here will likely make this pick a non-starter for family audiences. Jennifer Lopez's career has been a bit disjointed. She came out of the gates with Selena and a few other action films opposite George Clooney, Out of Sight, and some rom-coms opposite Matthew McCaw at The Wedding Planner. Lately, though, her career as far as quality films has taken a downswing. Films like Mother and Shotgun Wedding haven't been received that well, and they were very good. Her latest movie is another Netflix film called Atlas. It's better than her more recent fare in a futuristic world where I is running rampant. A woman Atlas. Jennifer Lopez, who has a bad history with I, is a data analyst for the government. She had an I in her family, a Harlan Simu Liu who went rogue and started an uprising. She has resented them ever since. When she gets the opportunity to interrogate one of the captured soldiers, Casca Abraham Papasha learns the whereabouts of the escaped Ireland. Her Commander General Booth Mark Strong sets up a mission with Colonel Elias Sterling K. Brown as its leader. He's not much of a fan of Atlas, but reluctantly agrees she would be a good asset a goof planet to help track down Harlan on a faraway planet, where he's hauled up with his army of eye soldiers, with the help of giant mech suits with human names, such as Zoe, Atlas, and others, attempt to capture Harlan on this distant planet. Atlas gets teamed up with Smith, voiced by Gregory James Cohen. Due at first, she has an awkward time acclimating to her mech suit. With her disdain for I, she has a hard time understanding and getting along with Smith. When they end up in a bad situation involving a massive gunfight and ambushed by Hatland's soldiers, they have to learn to get along for both of their survival. Atlas eventually gets the hang of her suit. They start to make a plan to finish their mission and then get off of this hellhole of a planet. As time goes by, they develop a great resource with one another, which helps them move forward. The majority of Atlas's CGI or virtual backgrounds of alien planets and such. As an actor, I'm sure this wasn't that easy, acting opposite of Lopez. There were quite a few things in the suits that the actors, mostly Lopez, had real, that she was acting alongside something we could reach out and touch. At first, the eye looked like CGI, but as the film and story progressed, I believed more and more about this world and the scenario she was in. I've seen a lot of sci-fi films with situations like this before, and the second half of this movie sucked me into the situation that was going on completely. Brad Peyton, the director, has assembled a nice cast of actors for this sci-fi film. Besides Lopez, there is Simu Liu as the big bad Harland, who has a friendly demeanor about him. But he has a mission for I to take over Earth, and that changes his friendly nature to that of a major threat. You shows that in his performance as an actor who plays nice guys, this is a nice turn for him as an actor. Mark Strong is the general, and he has that leadership quality about him, opposite Liu. He's played a lot of bad guys in his career, so it's a nice change to see him play a good guy for a change. Sterling K. Brown, also in a different turn from his days on the hit show This Is Us, plays the reluctant leader of the team of mech soldiers. He has to work with Lopez's character to take down Harland, and they work together well. I'm glad to see him getting different roles like this in the one in American Fiction. They show he has range. This cast overall was pretty good, considering they're in a CGI spectacle. The key to this film is the relationships between Lopez's character and her mech suit, voiced by James Cohen. They have a great banter and a love-hate relationship at times. Their interactions are funny, dramatic, and very emotional at times. The crux of the film is their interactions. The writers of the script, Leo Sardarian and Aaron Eli Klett, create a sense of humor while also creating a sense of dread throughout the story. The balance between the two was very well done. The script was realized quite nicely. The script is one of the strong points of this movie. It couldn't have been forgotten, considering the CGI nature of the film. Jennifer Lopez has tried to get away from her glamour days of rom-coms by taking roles as strong-willed female characters with grit and determination. These roles have helped and hindered her. In Hustlers, it worked into her strengths as an actress and singer. It showed off her sultry side. In Mother, it completely failed her. I didn't believe in that role at all. In Altas, she plays on both the comedic and dramatic sides of her personality and career. She's fantastic in this role and doesn't take herself too seriously. She's become a well-rounded actress in her older years. Atlas is a film that gets off to a slow start. The world building is a bit confusing at the start, but Lopez's character starts to get going as the film takes off. Her interactions with Smith, the Metroid, who she has a close connection with, is the main focus of the second half of the movie. This is the part of the sci-fi spectacle that is the most enjoyable to me. The cast is solid with interesting turns from Lou Brown and Strong. The best is the voiceover by James Cohen. He adds a nice touch to what otherwise could have been droll computerized Max suits. Overall, this was an entertaining movie that gets Lopez back in the plus side of things as far as her career goes. Atlas is a new Netflix science fiction adventure starring Jennifer Lopez. The title character is a cybernetic analyst who is ironically opposed to much of the eyes she's helped build. When she realizes Earth is again menaced by the synthetic humanoid robot Harlan that she and her mother brought to life, Atlas is determined to enter the fight. She decides to join the team, traveling to a planet in the Andromeda Galaxy to find and defeat Heron. However, the ship commander and most of the team are wiped out, so Atlas is forced to sync her mind with an artificially intelligent mechanical battlesuit. Can she overcome her aversions and many other obstacles to save Earth? Atlas is a thrilling adventure which draws on key concepts from Isaac Asimov's robot stories to Blade Runner, the acclaimed Harrison Ford movie developed from a novel by Philip K. Dick. The movie's story dynamic of a technology-averse heroine who learns to use advanced technology to combat an out-of-control artificial intelligence is compelling. Jennifer Lopez is convincing and relatable in her role. However, several times the creative team get a bit carried away with the story and forget that any story, no matter how fantastic, must accord with the rules governing their secondary world. An example of this is when Agent Atlas hits the planet's surface in her mech suit, traveling at unreal speeds, and hits her head against the inside of her titanium suit. By any measure, this would have broken her neck and smashed her head. If one can look past these issues, Atlas is a lot of fun for the summer. It remains a fast, furious, and fun popcorn science fiction movie. Atlas has a mixed pagan worldview. For example, the heroine and other characters consistently take morally positive actions. Also, the movie stresses the importance and power of trust. However, this trust is often demonstrated in relation to artificially intelligent and other non-human characters. In that light, the movie promotes romantic humanist notions that life is life, and that trusting technology is as integral as trusting God or people. Much like the love is love, pagan assumption of Western postmodern culture, these ideas undermine biblical notions of trusting Jesus and being empowered by the Holy Spirit. Also, Atlas has no overt positive references to God or even the concept of God, although the godlike powers of advanced iRobots are on full display. As a result, the movie has a strong vibe in the mode of the futurist inventor and computer scientist Rakers, while who looks to advanced artificial intelligence as a way to, in his words, become God without believing in God. See his book, The Singularity is Near. Despite this, one character in Atlas mentions that he has faith in the existence of a soul, and another character makes a sacrifice in one scene. Emergent technologies inevitably have hiccups, but the issues humanity has encountered with artificial intelligence are more severe than expected. When a rogue intelligence called Simu Liu found a way to break his programming, he brought as many other intelligences with him as he could. Together, they butchered 3 million people before fleeing into space, waiting for an opportunity to return and finish the job. Humans aren't waiting passively to be butchered. They are ready to take the fight to the stars. Thanks to the work of intelligence analyst Atlas Shepard, Jennifer Lopez, they have located Harland on a remote planet blanketed by scanner-disrupting iron storms. Finding him, as it turns out, is the easy part. As soon as Atlas and a squad of rangers in combat mesh pods turn up, they're met with a brutal assault from Harland's forces. Everyone but Atlas is killed, and she is stuck in a combat mech. She has no idea how to pilot to be fully functional. The mechs on board Ice Smith, Gregory James Cohen needs to sync with her brain, but Atlas has a deep-seated distrust of I. The seriousness of their circumstances demand that she rethinks some of her feelings, but Atlas is a stubborn woman, and they're short on time before Harland finds and kills them. Bland and overburdened with familiar tropes and dated visual design, It Losses struggles to hold up the weight of its 2-hour runtime. The dialogue bounces between dull exposition and seeming non-sequiturs, which Ice is so fun for the audience, and the acting doesn't exactly draw us in either. That's all right. I hear you saying, I'm just here for the big robot mech fights. Bad news there, as there aren't many of those. Worse. You can really tell which scenes they tried to save money on, and the CGI varies wildly from scene to scene. Honestly, I'd prefer it if they made everything look a little bit worse. At least it would be consistent. In fairness, I don't suppose to be a little bit worse since it's already riding the fence between mediocre and aggravating like a prize jockey. Anyone considering this sci-fi flick for family viewing is unlikely to be thrilled with the frequent, if usually bloodless, violence and regular cursing drawbacks, not exactly offset by the complete absence of sex or substance use. The problem this movie has is audience familiarity with the subject matter. Many movies have been made about the ethical issues around artificial life forms, and a number of them are excellent. It's hard to spend 2 hours slogging through this when it keeps reminding you that you could click an Oblade run instead and have a much better time. Netflix's focus on being entirely mediocre continues with stupefyingly dull-centric sci-fi antics in this Jennifer Lopez-ly actioner, a Atlas directed by a Rampagia and a San Andreas Helmer Brad Peyton. If you typed write a script involving Irut and an enormously derivative plot centered around the end of the world, Atlasa is exactly the type of thing ChatGPT would spit out in a half-second day. Atlas owes a lot to the spectrum of genre films of decades past, not the least of which Blade Runner Avatar, and Irut in borrowing ideas from other films and smashing them together so haphazardly, at a cultural footprint will exponentially reduce the fewer people become aware of its cinematic ancestry, if it even survives at all. This is a painfully a dull movie, with Lopez trying as hard as she can to shoulder a fairly inane artificial intelligence plot and a vagary of nonsensical thematic underpinnings. But Peyton's inability to really make us connect with the material is a key problem to the film's malaise. In the future, sentient robots have gained independence in an attempt to take over the Earth, with the UN-like organization of humans dedicated to hunting down these terrorists and mitigating their threat. The leader of these robotic terrorists, Simu Liu, has escaped to a different planet to build an army with designs on returning to Earth to conquer. Meanwhile, PTSD-afflicted scientific analyst Atlas Shepard Lopez, daughter of the famous inventor Val Shepard, Lana Parrilla, and creator of the synthetic robots and their eye systems, struggles with guilt over her mother's death. Launched onto a recon mission to locate Harland, Atlas, and a cohort of human ice auditors. Mesh arrive in the Andromeda Galaxy and are promptly ambushed, leaving the headstrong analyst to survive in a mech suit with her only companion, Smith, voice of Gregory James Cohen, to keep her alive against Harland's forces. Netflix have really had a shocking run of luck picking quality scripts to stump up money to produce for their service. I mean, their track record has been spotty at best for the longest time, but it's starting to get to the point now where they can't even stumble into a win with their original programming. Various internet reporting suggests they dropped a lazy $100 million in TOA at loss of production. Not exactly chomp change for sure, but aside from a barrage of flashy visuals, and they are flashy, rivaling even Zack Snyder's recent 2024 effort, a rebel myth for quality VFX, there's not much beneath the surface. Unfortunately, the film screenplay, variably credited to Leo Sardarian and Aaronelli Koliak, lacks inventiveness, seemingly content to nick a bunch of other films' ideas and adjust them to suit this story's aesthetic. The eccentric themes in Robots Go Bad, plot is fairly generic, liberally stolen from My Eye, Robot, Blade Runner, and of Terminator. A while. The film's design aesthetic leans into games, camera avatar mech suits, and soft, core Star Wars use tech, not exactly ingenious, and giving you a real feeling. Oh, fad deja vu. While you're watching, the visual effect used to represent Smith's avatar on screen looks like the Siri effect on an iPhone. Also apes the Wachowski's directorial style from The Matrix, only without the crisp understanding of how that style works to back it up, and the plentiful VFX, explosions, and expansive world building certainly make the world of Atlas Shepard feel lived in. But you really can't escape the feeling that this jigsaw piece collection of parts should have perhaps stayed in the cupboard. Even Jennifer Lopez struggles to elevate this material. Okay, she's a better singer than she's ever been an actor, but neither Shotgun Wedding nor the Mother Netflix premiere have really drawn upon her strengths. Her character's tragic backstory and weighty conflict with I as a concept is drawn out throughout the movie, and by and large never quite connects with the viewer. A join the dots scene a coming twist in Frankenstein, building the monster trope, part of the frustratingly inert subplot, backgrounding the slick production values. She spends a lot of the film encased inside her armored neck, stubbornly refusing to connect with the intuitive eye program within it, voiced by Gregory James Cohen, doing his best male Siri impression and delivering very much a sweaty, concerned Tom Hanks' scenic castaway performance, that of Broken Bar. Well, it never quite gets there. Supporting roles to Sterling K. Brown and Mark Strong's Atlas military backup offer minuscule depth to the plot, while Sam will use Harland and Shepard lacks the gravitas required to provide a decent foil to Atlas' character arc. In truth, Liu sports a look that's a cross between Kim Jong-un and Rakun's character Roman, Die Another Day, and spends a lot of the film off-screen given the urgency his character is given in the overall mission. The actor has limited opportunity to really deliver a compelling character at all, but he plays up the sinister one-note troll as hard and as malevolent as he can, despite the cacophony of noise surrounding him. It truly boggled the mind that for the film's climax, the film had a bizarre laser sword thing emerged from Harlan's forearm without even so much. Also why an apparently domesticated robot might have such a weapon in the first place. Yep, a lot of stupid decisions behind the camera make for stupid things happening in front of it. Suggesting that a movie was written by I has already become a tired critical cliché. A copyright, which therefore means describing Atlas. A new science fiction movie starring Jennifer Lopez requires additional care. Yes, the lazy critic could probably say Thada at loss of feels, as if someone fed I Robbo, the 2004 feature, not the short story collection by Asimov and Edge of the Moa, into some kind of advanced, but not that advanced screenwriting software, and turn the dial to good enough for streaming. But the truth is, human screenwriters enthusiastically rip off other movies and rewrite them using stock phrases and cliché till the copyrights all the time. Where at Losa really gets ahead of the competition is its enthusiastic endorsement of RAM. I barely concealed within its low-level craft. It's a movie where Jennifer Lopez discovers the life-changing and even heartwarming possibilities of giving into technology you don't like and fusing your brain with a computer program. Maybe I didn't write it. Maybe humans just want I to weep with gratitude after absorbing it. Lopez plays Atlas Shepherd, middle name Signpost MapQuest, a military analyst in the distant future whose colleague, General Booth Mark Strong, describes her as driven and determined, though Colonel Banks Sterling K. Brown prefers rigid and hostile, the two genders, etc. Shepard's mother was an architect of the artificial intelligence that she's currently fighting against her mom's robot, Harlan Simu Liu. Raised as a kind of after-Yang-style older brother, too, Atlas, when Roan became a futuristic terrorist using his computing power to order massive drone strikes against humans before obsing to some far-off planet. Early in the movie, Atlas uses her ruthless and brilliant interrogation techniques reflected by her casual playing of a Get This HS to get one of Harlan's eye soldiers reduced to a robot head in a box to give up Harlan's location. She then insists on joining the mission to track him down. For the mission, the movie plants Atlas' combination of old-school anti-root sentiment from Will Smith's character Arena iRobot and lack of combat experience from Tom Cruise's character Arena Edge of Tomorrow into a giant mech suit, which also resemble S-Edge. The high-powered suit called Smith, and voiced by Gregory James Cohan, then doubles as a partner to a skeptical, irritable Atlas, as the mission goes sideways, forcing the two as one to traverse the planet and find Harlan on their own. In the broad outlines, this isn't so different from any number of sci-fi movies where a human locates genuine life from a robotic or otherwise synthetic companion. The idea of Atlas vending her feelings of betrayal after being raised alongside a hyper-intelligent robot A and even suspecting that her mother preferred him, a whirs with promise, and that scene of Lopez torturing the detached robot head who later returns in multiple additional robo-soldier bodies, hints at an earlier or at least naughtier version of this material underneath the shiny surface. But in a misguided at best touch, Atlas doesn't just learn to appreciate a different life form. She's pressed a Harand, even A, into allowing her mech suit full link-up access to her brain, and forming, as Smith refers to it, with a loftiness the movie doesn't question something greater. A at loss accouches all of its human-robot collaboration in a kind of mindless eye-boosterism. All the more frustrating because this meeting of the minds primarily results in terrible banter and plasticky action beats. Lopez does not reveal a here to for hidden Harrison Ford like talent for acting opposite visual effects that truly sells us on the reality of what's happening. She does green screen overacting and in a roundabout way shills for the generative eye destruction of the universe. Perhaps I'm overreacting. After all, the movie's bad guys are I too, inspiring many dramatically blank looks from Liu, but there's something algorithmically sketchy about a movie that sells human eye-brain fusion as a kind of level-up convenience. Cohen's voice does almost too smooth a job, realistically imitating the generic tone of I, rather than the cuter, cuddlier tones of a more famous or ingratiating voice. The movie really does feel like watching Lopez harness the awesome powers of Google. Adding the Kung Fu downloads of Fatum Matrix to the Kate list of movie ideas of Knacks Off I Foot Lossa ever approaches charm. It's in that enthusiastic ripoff zone. The slick mockbuster Malu, where director Brad Peyton has logged time with Dwayne Johnson, Journey to the Mysterious Island, a San Andresa and the Rampage. These provide the flashes where it briefly seems as if Lopez might have just made a silly piece of sci-fi junk that passes the time easily and crumples even easier. Rather than a weirdly insidious appall after the invasive tech of feckless CEO dreams. And for all that dreaming, Lopez still can't figure out anything genuinely exciting that a robo-brain Jennifer Lopez might actually do, or any philosophy for Harlan that goes beyond the most familiar destroy to save boilerplate, which the movie inexplicably treats as a surprise revelation. I may not be advanced enough to make a movie even as Grapiosa Atlas, but in the meantime, it seems like autocomplete is having a go at it. Jennifer Lopez has been in 5 films over the last 2 years and still on the way. After her acclaimed 2019 performance, Cena Hustlers, Lopez has starred in 2 romantic comedies, 2 action films, and a bizarre music video biopic monstrosity linked to her latest album. Now, her second Netflix feature in as many years, Atlas, aims to be JL's Lowe's Marvel-esque blockbuster, but falls short in every conceivable way. Directed by San Andresa Helra, Brad Peyton, Alasa is a special effects-laden foray into the most cliched science fiction genre, offering I have seen in a long time, with what is supposed to be a timely tale about artificial intelligence. Alasa throws every trope from the last 50 years of Sue movies as it aims to be Netflix's attempt at the summer tentpole. Picture underwhelming in every way. Alasa is a directionless and limp mess that wastes the talents of everyone involved. Opening with a montage of news clips summarizing how the world reached the point it has, Atlas explains that humanity is at war with an AI android named Harlan Simu Liu, who was created by Dr. Val Shepard, Lanila Atlas' mother. After leaving our solar system and hiding for over a decade, Harlan sends an android named Cascadesius Abraham Papula to Earth. General Jake Booth, Mark Strong, enlists analyst Atlas Shepard, Jennifer Lopez, to join a team led by Colonel Elias Banks, Sterling K. Brown, to travel to the planet where Harlan is hiding and bring him to justice before he destroys the Earth. Atlas, who harbors a deep hatred for technology and I, is reluctant to join the mission, as Banks soldiers rely on mech suits known as ARCs, which also require syncing the human and machine via a device worn around the ear. Sure enough, the mission is compromised, and Atlas is left alone on the hostile planet aboard an ARC with an AI known as Smith, Gregory James Cohen. After 30 minutes of quick intro, the next tower of Faye at Lassa is spent, forcing Jennifer Lopez to begrudgingly ally with Smith, pulling every genre, conceit, ranging from a Terminator 2, Judgment Day, Enemy Mind, and Diva the Iron Giant. Atloa must learn to trust the machine in her suit, even though she knows Harlan and his kind are the reason her mother is dead. Having Jennifer Lopez try to feel an emotional connection to a machine is challenging, and it is even more difficult for the audience as we spend almost the entire film with Lopez inside a mech suit, talking in a disembodied voice. The filmmakers try to make it cute by having Smith adopt characteristics of Atlas' personality as they slowly sink, which means we hear a robot casually use profanity and begin to blend emotion with intelligence that feels more like Mr. Spot getting drunk than anything a machine would do. A few battle sequences are peppered in as Atlas shuffles through the getting-to-know-you stages to properly bond with Smith and take cake down Harlan and his army of androids. Losa had been at least superficially invested in developing any of the characters aside from the main character. I could have invested in this story. Sterling K. Brown, Mark Strong, and Simu collectively appear for all 10 minutes of screen time each. With Simu Liu set to be the equivalent of a Terminator-esque nemesis, his screen time is limited to a few scenes with little dialogue, followed by a massive battle that pits Harlan against Atlas within her mesh suit. This fight sequence is meant to be the film's centerpiece, but it looks so bad that it would never hold up on the big screen. Samuel Yu looks like he is making virtually the same movements as he did in Shanghai, and The Legend of the Ten Rings. To the point I am not sure they didn't just pull footage from the Marvel Studios film and use them here with some updated rendering. The wasted talent of all actors involved is made much worse by the ham-handed dialogue that never once feels like it would come out of the mouth of a human being. Director Brad Peyton has worked with big-budget special effects projects before, mostly with Dwayne Johnson involved. A Journey 2, the mysterious Alan made the silly CGI feel fun, while both of San Andreas and The Rampage took the destruction porn to new heights while still managing to create realistic tension. The entire FA at Lhasa looks to have been filmed on a green screen with virtually nothing tangible. The mech suits are laughable compared to similar suits seen in James Cameron's Avatar films, with the movements and mechanics paling compared to even the most mediocre video game cuts. The script by Leo Sardarian, along with rewrites by Aaron L.I. Kolak, rushes to establish the rules of this near-future society and, yet still feels the need to put a title card on the screen stating the action is taking place in Los Angeles, despite the massive Hollywood sign in the middle of the frame. The entire Fatty at Losa features dialogue as superficial as this, including an emotional question meant to resonate with the audience regarding whether Atlas prefers cake or pie. At Lhasa delivered a solid teaser trailer that intrigued me enough to check out the movie, but I have not been this disappointed by a feature film in a long time. I should learn to keep my Netflix expectations very low. But, having enjoyed Brad Peyton's work in the past and assuming the cast could pull this one off, I was foolish in thinking this would be anything more than another filler effort. The production values look good, but the subpar CGI offsets any positives this movie has. Jennifer Lopez has 2 brief scenes that almost rescue her performance, but they cannot overcome the chat. GPT-caliber dialogue spouted in this 2-hour exercise in boredom. I never thought I would see a day when a movie featuring robots, international star Jennifer Lopez, the mother, 2023, embraces the role of the reluctant soldier in the science fiction action film Atlas A, which premiered on Netflix May 24th. And while Miss Lopez gives it her all to fight for planet Earth, this film seems doomed for obscurity from the beginning. Set in an ominous future, robots with artificial intelligence have risen up against their masters and killed much of the human race under the leadership of a hands robot terrorist, Simu Liu, Barbie, 2023. Many years after this robot terrorist escaped Earth, a counterterrorism analyst finds out where the terrorist is hiding beyond our solar system. So, a team of anxious warriors fly in their spaceship to a dangerous planet to capture the bad guy without getting killed themselves. This film truly goes Allen with the sci-fi embellishments, filling the distant planet with a lightning storm, a tornado, a sinkhole, and a snowy glacier. But in order to survive, Jennifer Lopez's stern, logical character has to join forces with an artificial intelligence system inside a giant mechanical suit equipped with guns, bombs, and 10-to-long metal limbs. At loss, it tries to be a treacherous fight for survival and a perceptive social commentary on the dangers of artificial intelligence, but it succeeds at neither because the writing is so vapid, uninteresting, and immature. Did Jennifer Lopez know a number of the lines she was forced to say in this were horribly lame? This film packs a wallop of irony, being about the growing power of artificial intelligence, or AI. And while I watched it, I thought, was this screenplay actually written by an AI program with zero oversight from a competent human? The screenplay is original, with no previous source material, but it's written with so little wisdom, care, thoughtfulness, and believability. I could only think of other sci-fi films that Lhasa has shamelessly borrowed from. These other films include Dia Pacific Rima 2013, A Aftera 2013, A Chapia 2015, and the Vrup Krita from last year. And some information about it. How do you like our today's video? Please let us know by commenting, and if you like this video, please like it, share it, and forget to subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching.